This is a best of 5 finals. Bottom left of Dynasty is Psystorm's MaxPax. And in the top right, we have Reynor. So Reynor with a dominating performance versus Spirit in ZvT now faces MaxPax in a ZvP. Mechanically, Reynor can be the world's best, I suppose, actually, if he's playing his best. Probably, yeah. But that's not necessarily the game of ZvP. It is very much the game of ZvT, particularly when you're facing an opponent that you probably feel very comfortable with. Spirit isn't opposed to doing something kind of cheesy or different, but in a TVZ, especially with the current meta the way that it is, it's like, again, that guaranteed first 5 minutes, and then a real mechanical battle at 7 or 8 minutes, and then just, yeah, more mechanics. With ZvP, you're obviously talking a little bit more about what is the Protoss doing. And while 2 base all-ins are basically a thing of the past, I suppose, you still have 2 base pressures, you still have 3 base pressures, you still have different compositions, and you still have different, you know, attack versus defend type of Protoss play. Where, again, ZvT is just so much... The tempo of it is really well practiced. And Protoss versus Zerg, it's like the tempo can be a bunch of different things. Magic Rover, thank you for the Prime sub. So that's what I'm looking at, but notably, Reynor did take a particularly third, or natural, sorry. This is not his third. This is very much his second base. So that drone had to go quite the distance to finally plant that hatchery down. Every subsequent drone made has to do the same thing, unless built, of course, from this base. Something that Reynor might actually be keeping an eye on where he's producing the drone eggs. So... he's already almost saturated this base, getting that handful of lings to help against the initial adept defense. MaxPax going for his own gold base, but without the Rich Vespian Geyser. Protoss kind of get the short end of the stick on this one, as far as taking the Rich Vespian plus gold potential. Terrans do it, Zergs obviously do it. Protoss, maybe in a PvP, and maybe if it's a North American PvP, I guess. But otherwise, not so much. So third base will be able to come down at a wall, and that is nice, but it's kind of a double-edged sword, as that wall is also restricted to the Protoss army positioning, depending on how the game's going to go, I guess. Again, MaxPax could throw out something a little more aggressive, try and get that map control, like obviously he's going Stargate, a couple of Oracles, all fine and dandy, regular opener, but he could add on No Forge, go right into that Blink after this first Oracle. Right into that Twilight Council. He could have been going into Resident Enclaves, but I don't think he will this game. Reynor's got to keep that in mind, as well as deal with the Adept Harassment, which is trying to take advantage of the space allowed, thanks to the expansion process of the Zerg. Without Spielings, you're going to still have trouble chasing down the Adepts. However, nice little block. He even sees the opportunity to get the actual block. The first one wouldn't have, I believe. So nicely done for Reynor, being able to fix that on the fly. Third Adepts and Oracle, though, will come in to get the actual damage done. All it takes is that second Queen being out of position. First Queen was trying to push away the Adept, and suddenly the Oracle gets an extra couple of kills. Could have been worse, but probably could have been better, too, for Reynor. Maybe only 4 or 5 drones go down instead of 7. Hard to say that would have been perfect, just without a Spore Crawler, but... maybe it could have been that as well. Overall, when you keep in mind that both of them are actually mining off of a gold, the Reynor doesn't seem to be doing particularly hot. Down a couple of workers. His third hatch only just beginning. Not my favorite looking Zerg in the world. MaxPax really was just on the straight and narrow, by the way. Instantly 3 Oracles. No delay on that production. Twilight Council and Forge coming down at around the same time. Possibly still in a Blink and a little bit of Blink pressure on the map, but I was throwing out some ideas that, you know, the way that a Protoss could get some of that map control and start to apply some pressure. You know, sometimes we even see them dedicate to a proxy pylon for a little bit extra on that pressure. Not an all-in, but just a little bit of a touch-and-go situation. And not this time around. That's not this. This is MaxPax getting to 3 base. Really good economy. Then pumping out all of his army. And while that might still result in him having to defend his third like this, with his army behind the wall, he might have enough to do it anyway. But that is the awkward thing about this. If Reynor gets a bunch of Lings and Hydras on top of the wall here and the Stalkers are blinking defensively through their own choke, it gets a little weird. But Reynor really seems to have a slow start in this game. The gold base does not seem very worth it, considering how far the drone had to go, how far the the transferring drones, had to go, how much that it was still vulnerable to that multi-pronged pressure, and just in general, how far behind Reynor is on the workers. But, like, I think the real kicker is that gold base isn't a gold base just for you. You still get a gold base on the other side of the map in a safer location. Just the Rich Vespian Geyser that's different, which is clearly not different enough. It feels like MaxPax has done a very normal, very non-committal type of PvZ, and is just going to win with it. Not because he's really supercharged all-inning off of 3 bases. He still has all of his gases, 5 of them, of course, with the natural being what it is. He's still going to move on to additional technology, but seeing the opportunity to not just pressure with the Stalkers, clean up some creep spread, catch a couple of queens, he's actually going to win with this. And I really, you know, it's a lot of gateways. It is pressure. It is a committal of units. But it still doesn't feel like it should be able to win the game this easily. The only reason it's not winning the game right here, right now, is because Reynor's trying to play like a tug-of-war, like, you come over to the left side, then I go over to the right side. That's the only reason it's taking time. I'm pretty sure, should Reynor ever just... Yeah, okay, no, my Lurkers are here finally, but... Ever take direct fight? Like, I think he just loses. Lurkers are pretty good, so maybe, yeah, don't overstay. Despite being able to snipe the Lurkers. But now that there's only one Lurker, yeah, that is going to go down pretty quickly. Transfuse will save it for now. Ling's coming in as well. No upgrades on them, however. I mean, Reynor has just never had a supply lead. Never had a drone lead. Never got any upgrades. I mean, if his idea was to get a faster, more powerful Ling Hydra attack, well, Ling Hydra Lurker, I guess, but still, that just did not work out very well. I can't quite articulate it, but this is a very odd game from Reynor. Almost as if he was experimenting with something. MaxPax clearly not experimenting with anything. Again, mostly a very normal macro PvZ. He didn't add on Colossus and wait for them to push. He didn't add on 8 Archons and wait for them to push. He did push with the Stalkers he was growing, but it still was not that bad. You know, maybe a game-winning army after a really tight back and forth where the Zerg player had the misfortune of the rally, and you're like, okay, that pushed it over the edge. That just looked like the easiest win, despite it taking a couple extra minutes, just because MaxPax wanted to make sure he didn't throw the game away. That looked almost easy. Very odd. And I will throw out there that on top of the other things I was saying were downsides of that gold base, there was the reinforcement path. You know, it kind of bought some time because, again, MaxPax was like, I need to do it with the left and then I'll do it with the right. But it overall meant that a Zerg army, smaller in size than the Protoss, was also coming in kind of piecemeal, one at a time. That doesn't seem ideal. Creep spread had never been bridged between the bases either. It's just like a completely different looking player. And when you compare it to the ZvT that Reynor just played, that looked completely different. Top right of Crimson Court now it is MaxPax. Bottom left it is Reynor. I really am confused about that game. You know, Reynor upgrade list diving towards Ling Hydra Lurker might have been this, this plan. Attack that's supposed to work out, kind of an all-in. really, in all in, actually. 3 base, slow drone, no upgrade, Hydra Lurker, I guess. But it did not have any teeth on it. So if that was the plan, there's something definitely went awry. And then maybe it was more desperation, as he realized he was in this weird scenario. But it still looked very questionable. I think if he does the same thing on this map, it actually might look so much better just because of the map. Because obviously I have no authority to be saying that Reynor played things incorrectly. Or that the reason that he lost was purely because he played badly. Like, I don't really have authority to say that. Reynor has an idea. He has the mechanics. He's got the execution. Things go wrong in StarCraft. And, you know, MaxPax did at least get a couple of drones early on, and seemed to be the only thing that really went poorly. But, you know, nonetheless, MaxPax ended up tons ahead. Anyway, so you start to look for other reasons, and, you know, maybe one of them is just the map. You know, this time around, you don't get the gold base, but you still have the Rich Vespian Geyser. It's still a, you know, different calculation as to how many drones you have to make and how much gas you get at a certain time. And it's also a small map, which might mean that Reynor dies quicker, I guess, depending on what MaxPax does. Or it might mean that Reynor actually gets to, like, when he starts throwing punches, he actually does start to pummel the Protoss. But he's got to get to that point first, and that did not happen last game. But you got that forward position, you got the Rich Vespian. Your opponent doesn't have the same advantage. There's no way that MaxPax takes his forward base as natural. That's absolutely crazy. As his third, that would also still be kind of crazy. And then you also just in general have a shorter distance of the drone rallies, of the army rallies, of the creep spread connecting to each other, especially when the third's actually put down. This just seems like it would be a better map for whatever plan Reynor had in the last game. It just really does. But I'm looking forward to seeing something similar, and then we can see how it can work out when done in a more preferable manner, I suppose. Panzer, thank you for the 31 months. MaxPax, no reason to change things that are working, I suppose, even though this is a different map, and Reynor has taken a red flag base. One of those bases is where it takes where the defender suddenly is like are you gonna be aggressive off of it? You're gonna be like super macro off of it? What are you doing here? MaxPax not gonna let the placement of the third distract him from a good old typical PVZ. Although he does lose an adept here without doing any damage. He does make his first mistake, but it's Stargate. Third nexus of the triangle, I assume. It is one Oracle now. Oh, and then Twilight Council. Okay, so this is the big difference. It's kind of the first time that you see interesting things off of a Stargate opener is around this first Oracle's completion. So with the emphasis on the Twilight Council, literally same cost, Oracle versus Twilight Council, you're talking about an emphasis on whatever's coming out of the Twilight Council, right? Whether it's Blink, Resonate, Glaives. Clearly going to be more aggressive. Still all on 2 bases as well, right? That's actually a really big red flag now for Reynor to see waving in his face. And now he has to worry about what it is. Doesn't worry for very long, though. That Overload just kind of got in there, doesn't it? Just ran on in there. Just sees everything. I guess you still wouldn't know if it's Resonating Glaives or Blink until you saw the number of units, but no triangle third. Gonna take that forward third. I question mark this, actually. I know that he is supercharging his Blink. It is much faster than the alternative build, and so a Stalker number will also grow maybe a bit faster. But Reynor could already be ready to produce these roaches. And so, okay, he's not doing what he did last game, first of all, just to get that out of the way. He's definitely doing something different. But this is the difference that makes sense on this map. That forward position, slightly fewer drones necessary to get that completion on the gas, and then you can just pump out Ling, Roche, Ravager. And when the Protoss takes their third base here too, what rush distance is this? Like 10 seconds? It's insane. At the very least, if MaxPax had taken the triangle third, it'd be 15 or 20, I guess. But then he wouldn't be able to hopefully take advantage of the ramp, which didn't happen anyway. Thank you for that. Check in a second. Chip on overcharge going to be killed thanks to the help of the Ravager. Second shield battery is ready, but no overcharge, obviously. Nice snipe on the last Ravager. It looks like perhaps the earlier gateways are going to help out just enough. Just enough. To actually hold there. And that is, you know, that is suddenly now the pendulum swings over to MaxPax's side, right? Because early on, he actually had almost 0 units, and those roaches were coming. That was a scary moment. But as soon as he starts to accumulate a couple of stalkers, suddenly you got an actual ball of stalkers. You got 7, 8 plus. That's got a lot of micro potential. Got tons of micro potential against slow roaches and a trickle of lings, because you're really not pumping out hundreds at a time at this point. So now, when the pendulum swings, suddenly it's Reynor's third base, or natural, actually. That is the one that's awfully close to a growing Protoss army. The Stalker numbers will continue to grow, but this was at a cost. You know, you did not get that fast of a forge. So no advanced upgrade for MaxPax this game. Reynor working on that +1, not too far ahead of the upgrades. If MaxPax starts as immediately, but it is going to be Ling Banling Roach Ravager. And we got this explosive setup between these third bases. Fourth base being taken by Reynor as he does try and also replace some of the drones that he gave up earlier on. 57 to 57. Both players comfortable at that mark, apparently, until the expansions get up and running. And Reynor with the 30 army supply lead is pretty much at a perfect number to really defend against this, especially if those lings get us around. Blink's not to be used, but blinking back to the stasis trap is exactly what the Protoss had in mind. That is why MaxPax is able to approach that so well. Cautiously, but he still is trying to take whatever advantages that he can with the blink micro. He's not just staying at home waiting for the attack. So that means that he can always use his blink more than once, ideally, as he retreats like this, and then also ideally use the ramp when the push actually comes. Reynor still has the prepared lings going for either a surround or maybe a run by if it's on an opportunity to do so. I'm thinking more of a surround, hoping that the Stalkers get a little overeager, underestimating the number of lings that are actually available. That +1 melee is also done, so a ling surround would be extra devastating. Reynor building up quite a few banelings as well. No splash in the field for MaxPax. He's got charge, but Zealots don't really be wanting to race headfirst into a bunch of banelings. Banelings being used on the backside actually collide into mostly buildings. Probes end up surviving. Just kidding. No, they don't. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. No, they don't. No, they don't. But the Stalkers will survive. And that is a good number of Stalkers as well, but they do not have that +1 that we typically see. That third Nexus also now in trouble as the Stalkers forced to retreat further and further back to the shield battery. That will keep them all nice and healthy, but the Nexus can't say the same. Nexus is down, probes are down, no fourth base is being built, which means that Reynor now has a 2-base lead, also up by 12 workers, and the Stalkers will not only have to defend against this, which they're actually struggling to do, but they also got to initiate a counterattack and hope that it works out really well for them. The good news is, that is possible. Because of the length of the map and where they have placed their bases, these Stalkers, when they decide, okay, now I can move on the forward position, they can do that pretty freaking quickly. Reynor only has a limited amount of time to produce the lings necessary to stop this. MaxPax knows that is his main concern, though, is being surrounded by lings, and unfortunately, his main concern now are lings going for that run-by. Said they go for it, they saw an opportunity, they finally saw it, and it is going to cause all type of disruption. You know, whether or not they get any... This could get 0 probes. This could get 0 probes, 0 pylons, 0 zealots, and it's still a worthwhile run-by because it just bought a lot of time. No way in hell the Stalkers were going to be trying to micro on the front lines alongside dealing with the lings in the main. What was being microed, though, as MaxPax refused to just sit back and do absolutely nothing, was the Oracles. Both survive, actually, after killing 5 drones, so getting a little bit tit for tat. But clearly, the lack of Nexus is really the main concern, and there was no counter that officially happened. There was no counter. I think MaxPax now has to hope that Reynor basically drains his own energy. That Reynor over-invests into trying to kill the guy and then starts to run out of resources, because the economy isn't that great, but it is 100% better than MaxPax's. Unfortunately, MaxPax's hope that his Stalkers would live forever not going to come out to work here, and that is going to be a 1-1. Reynor, I think a much stronger build, generally. I really liked the path that he took on that map, I'm still kind of question marking the first one. But that second game, Crimson Court, that is a typical way to play Zerg. And it worked out eventually. Alright, so now tied up series 1-1. We got ourselves on Amphion. We're getting all the unique maps to start things off. In the bottom position, it is MaxPax. In the top position, it is Reynor. And yeah, it felt like two very specific map builds. Not that you can't just, plain old Roach Ravager all in. But yeah, very good on that map. But the second one looked great, and you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Oh, okay, that worked out, great, fun, fantastic. The first one just never got to look good. So, with the second one being a victory, things having been tied up, I can now feel confident saying that Reynor just, he's trying something on that first map, and it didn't work out. That happens. It's a great place to try things, because it is still that high pressure, little prestige, very good opponent test that you would need going into a bigger tournament than this. So, more power to him. But seeing him play a more complete second game gives us hope again. This will not be a stomp. This is not Reynor looking confused as hell in the matchup and then just letting everything go to shit. Yeah, he has plans. He can execute them given the right opportunity, and he can win with them. MaxPax did change things up, probably because of the map and the way that he saw that his opponent was expanding and playing it. Really don't have anything to suggest here. Not that MaxPax would care. But I think as far as the build, as far as the execution on MaxPax's side, it was almost all pretty, not perfect, but it made a lot of sense, right? Short map, probably an aggressive Zerg, get that blink up, get the stalkers up. That saved his life initially on the third base. But I do wonder if that kind of initial hubbub, the hiccup on that third, did contribute to the eventual decline of MaxPax's third base. Because while he did manage to recover, he lost, like 4 or 5 probes. It's not terrible, but he also lost, I think, some production on the Nexus. He lost the mining time on that Nexus. He did lose some stalkers while he was trying to build an army. He lost his adepts and the stalkers. Had to replace a shield battery. It was a little bit of damage, but for the first 5 or 6 minutes of a StarCraft game, it's like a little bit can be a lot. And if he had an extra 5 or 10 seconds on a different map or a different expansion path, maybe there is no hubbub on the third, and then he has everything lined up as well as possible to defend the true attack, I guess, the one that came later with the Lings as well. Or maybe he just needed a better shield battery, more shield batteries on the third base. I'm sure he knows. I'm sure he knows exactly what went wrong, and I'm just guessing here. But I did like the build. I did like the setup. Reynor is able to win out, and now we get the same start. Again, Oracle coming on through here. No Twilight Council coming down, though, so it should be second Oracle immediately. And then that third Nexus will be coming down too. Adept actually going to get some damage here. More than you would want as Reynor. 1 Adept killed so far for 3 drones. Handful of Lings. Second Adept not going to escape. Just kidding. I got bamboozled. It's saying the main because the Oracle is heading there too as well. Wants to be a little bit of a distraction. Or possibly get another kill once it is forgotten about. Not going to happen. Adept dies. Oracle only gets 1 or 2 more drones. Make that 3. Poor timing on that drone's birth. We're going to be born at the wrong time, idiot. And the Oracle will skedaddle after that. So 6 drones killed for the price of 2 Adepts so far, plus 8 Lings, which could have been 4 drones. Hello. Obviously, you need those Lings for the Adepts. But still, point is, MaxPax already getting an obnoxious amount of damage done. Because it's not necessarily game-ending. There's so many opportunities for other bad things to happen for either player. You could kill 20 drones in the first 5 minutes and you're like, I'm pretty sure I won this game. But then if 30 Lings kill a Nexus, you're like, well... So there's always that. But if you put yourself into the mindset of everything from now on will not go poorly for MaxPax, oh yeah, he has won the game. Yes. 2 Adepts. Once again getting in here. 1 dies, the other 1 survives, still causing more drone damage. 14 drones killed. For now, 3 Adepts. Creep Term are going to be denied as well. Oh my god, this is a terrible start for Reynor. And the only thing that would keep a pro, I think, in a game like this is that it's not a ladder game. It's a tournament game. It's a finals. So, you know, stay in it for a little bit. And then there is a chance for MaxPax to mess up somehow. But I don't know if that is going to happen. MaxPax did not mess up on his macro. He wasn't microing so hardcore that he just completely forgot his Nexus. He doesn't have any particular vulnerabilities because he did take the 3rd, I guess you'd call it a triangle. It's a very weird triangle. But yeah, he took the triangle 3rd that's rather protected. And so what are your options as the Zerg player? Keep your head down, drone. It's not really what you need. What you need is disruption, chaos, decisions, tough decisions having to be made. And MaxPax is just chilling, man. He's got, well, he probably doesn't drink if I had to guess, but got a little daiquiri with a little umbrella sitting on a lawn chair somewhere. This is a proper setup, man. Getting some pylons down, some more scouting, preparing his 4th base at that kind of quarter gold situation. Reynor's 4th base is only now 80% done. I mean, he's going to be in the same base count as the Protoss here. There's just no doubt about it. Not double expanding. And this aggression from this angle is going to be so difficult for Reynor to hold against. All these Gout are Lings right now, and while they will have an upgrade, they notably are lacking any type of projectile. So the Stalkers are going to blink behind the mineral wall. Go na-na-na-boo-boo. And even when they aren't, even if their backs are up against the mineral wall, it's still not a surround, which the Lings really need. Link's almost done. +1's almost done. War Prism's almost done. MaxPax not reinforcing his front line with the War Prism. He's going to use that to go for harassment. Makes a lot of sense since he has a proxy gateway. There's that blink forward, which gives the Lings an opportunity to nibble. It's actually before +1 as well, so not the best timing there. But I think the point is that you know that there's 2 factors here. 1, the Lings are never going to take the ideal engagement because of the wall. And 2, the more Lings that are depleted, the more chances there's not enough larva. And that is currently a bit of a problem. Reynor at 71 drones to replace the economy that he lost earlier on. Fantastic, but where's the army? He was so late to the Roachborn. He had an Infestation Pit, but I'm not sure he's going to actually be able to use it. Maybe he was thinking Swarm Host on this map, but not now. Not now. And now that +1 is done for the Stalkers as well. They got a little bit more room to start blinking backwards reflexively. We got Stasis Traps helping out. Oracles with Pulsar being able to take down the limited amount of anti-air, I would assume. Kind of all over the place, though. That was actually a little all over the place. That was not the best micro. Stalkers were being misblinked, I believe, and then the Oracles did not focus fire all on one Queen, so that was a little weird. That got a little disjointed. But I don't think it matters because MaxPax is continuing to expand aggressively on this left side while also harassing the right side with that War Prism. You really can't ask for a better setup. Because there's also no repercussions. At the very least, if things really go to shit for MaxPax, he could just retreat. And then the minerals would take a couple of drones worth of returns to actually get through. And you don't want just 2 of them open. You want, space so you don't force yourself through a choke. Yeah, it's just a wonderful game for MaxPax. I don't know how else to put it. Reynor, he's on the ropes. He has done his best to recover from all of the problems in this game. But even as he got up to a good economy, the Zealots, once again, are causing interruptions to that. He's not been able to touch MaxPax's economy, so we have no tit-for-tat situation. It just looks very bleak for Reynor's future. MaxPax looked like he kind of thought he could win the game. I'm going to guess that's what happened when he kind of went all over the place with the Oracles and the Stalkers. He just figured he was going to win, but not going to happen. Does need to put a little more effort into it, but with a still 20 supply lead over a very basic Ling Baneling Roach Ravager, not even +2 melee army. Matter of time. Matter of time. MaxPax could just throw Zealots around. I mean, he could get Archons and Storm if he wanted. Doesn't need it. That would probably be the cherry on top, though. The real easy engagement would happen if there's a couple Storms here. Nidus Worm for the win, obviously. It did actually complete. Even if he got the Nice Worm in the main base, don't think it would be difficult for MaxPax to respond to actually finding Reynor too under-defended in multiple locations. So this isn't enough army for Reynor. War Prism is still in the main, going to threaten that angle. 6 drones went down. 4th base is mining for Reynor. Got to give him credit for that one. But MaxPax is also on 5 bases, and he might even take a 6th. Because why not? He has the money. He has the protection. 2-1 going to finish up for our Protoss, meaning that there is now a 2 upgrade advantage for the Protoss, as well as just the quality of the soccer count here. It was Swarm Hosts. That was the plan. The plan has taken 2 minutes longer than anticipated. They will probably stop the win from happening right here, right now, but then that means they'll have to use their Locust defensively, which means they will not be able to do anything to help Reynor in the long-term game plan here. And I'm not actually sure they will stop this. Archons are here, so they'll help out against the Locust a bit more. Pure Soccer doesn't really want to handle them. Night Swarm doesn't go into the main base, but it does go somewhere that's totally unscouted, so points for that. MaxPax, as I said, though, I just can't see him having trouble dealing with the Night Swarm. And yeah, that nothing even pops out of it. So GG, MaxPax with a 2-1 lead. Now looking at potentially the final game, just really has Reynor's number overall, I would say. The second map was difficult to hold against what Reynor did. I'm not going to say it was entirely the map's fault that MaxPax lost, but, you know, understandable, difficult game. The games that are more in the bottom left of Alcyone, we do have Basilisk's Reynor now on his last life. And in the top right, we do have Psystorm's MaxPax, who is playing as much of a macro PvZ as possible, really. He is changing the timing of the Twilight Council, mostly dependent on, I guess, the map and thus what his opponent would be doing to him. That was, that's the only change-up, you know. He's not doing Resident Glaives, he's not doing a 2-base all-in, he's not doing some weird, like, fast carrier thing, I don't know. Stargate, Twilight Council, Blink, Gateway units, it's all working out really well for MaxPax. We're finally done with the most unique maps in the map pool. You know, this map has a couple of neat features, but definitely not unique in the way that the first 3 are. You have gold bases, you have a part of the map that can't be taken easily, so it shares some features with the other maps that we saw, but the way that it plays out, it's still more normal. Can't really take the entirety of the one side like MaxPax did last game. It's a longer map, so even if you expand in a triangle more forward to your opponent, it's like so far forward. There is Zelnaga covering a lot of the attack paths. Whatever, right? So, I mean, this might be the first game that we see Reynor get to 70+ drones in a really comfortable manner. Last game, it was mostly just trying to recover from a disastrous start. Tried to pump that out and then get the army in time, which did not happen. I think this time it's the most promising one. This map doesn't encourage a lot of those big changes that can throw off a normal StarCraft game. You know, it's more like, yeah, take your third. If it's blocked out, and your natural, and then your natural or your third, whatever one, and then see if the Protoss is expanding, and then if they are, be like, okay, it's not too bad, enough to worry as of yet, and then blah, 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 blah. You know, ZvP shit. Stargate is on the way, so no change up for MaxPax. Reynor did have to take his third as his natural, getting speed as well. Reynor has almost the last, gosh, I want to say like a year. It feels like he has been stopped by Protosses most often. His EPT typically looks really good because it is so mechanically demanding, but then every now and again, he'll look really off on it. He won't be able to recover from the early game damage. He won't have the very decisive mid and late game that we saw versus Spirit today. And so it's not that he's ever, you know, he's perfect in TVZ all times, every meta, but he can typically look better in it. It is ZvP where you really, I think, see the people who are comfortable with it and uncomfortable with it, I guess. You know? Like, Reynor can beat a lot of Protosses. MaxPax is just one of the world's best, of course. But you compare Reynor's ZvT, of which I would say he mostly feels confident, even if he ends up losing, to his ZvP, and it's, you know, I don't know what his particular feelings are. I haven't asked him in a while, but I think you can tell that the tempo of the matchup doesn't gel as well with Reynor in the way that he likes to play. So I think Protoss might not be his worst matchup, but kind of when it comes to the later stages of tournaments, it feels like that's where he gets got. I think it's happened in the Open Cups quite a few times. More drones, more queens, more oracles, no fast Twilight Council, third base is on the way. Best chance possible for a good macro game. Provided that Reynor doesn't start losing drones like he did last time. Last game, he was probably going to do something with Swarm Host from the get-go. Amphion's just a really good map for it. If you're going to try something out that's not a normal ZvP on that map, Swarm Host is the way to go. But he had already taken so much damage. It was already a lost game, basically, that it was kind of a... Why even bother mentioning it? It barely even happened and they got Swarm Hosts. So if this game, he doesn't lose 15 drones to Oracle Adept Harassment, so far so good, then I think he could actually have a good attempt at taking this to Game 5. The Adepts, notably, were not harassing. One of the reasons that Reynor has thus far not taken drone damage. But it is because they were favoring a bigger attack a little later on, rather than 2 and 2. It is all 5 at once. Queens will need to be combined together to help out here. Not quite enough Lings, particularly if the Adepts got into a Nook. But Lings and Queens and a Nook probably just pull the drones away. You don't take that as the Adepts. Maybe here, actually. Nope, still not going to do it. Mostly wanting to find something really out of position. The real green light to go for either his Oracles or the Adepts. Right now, Reynor is putting stop signs all around his base. Much better defense thus far. One Adept has gone down for 2 drones and 6 Lings. That's fine. That's normal. That's whatever. And an Overlord, I guess, will also die. But +1 missile. So not any heavy. 3 base all in. 4th base is on the way on that right side. Creep Tumor is already being pushed that direction. Adepts basically giving up on trying to get the harassment done. Just hold on to the Xel'Naga. And we got a total of 3 Oracles. So that is a lot of potential spell casting. Either more damage done, which, oh, make that 2 Oracles. 1 is gonna get shot down. MaxPax goes too deep. The Queens converged all in a surround. It was kind of beautiful. But at the very least, still has 2 Oracles. It still has the power to kill drones quickly and a couple of Revelations, a couple of Stasis Traps to help as the game continues on. We got Hydralisk Den and Infestation Pit, so he also did actually get these buildings in the first game, I think, but he was dead again. Or was it the third game? Whatever one. Anyway, so Hive, Lurkers, all that good stuff. MaxPax's gonna have an actual game to play in the mid-game. Not to be rude, but it's just kind of the way it's gone. Either Reynor was already dead, or it was a map that was causing some concerns already. This is Alcyone. This is 4 bases being get up, split. 5 bases for the Zerg at the gold. Ling. Hydra, Lurker, no stop on the roaches necessary. I guess he did get a roach warren, but he's not building any. This is actually a really nice position. The Stasis Trap to help out a little bit, but then when you blink down, especially if these rocks are up. Yeah, if you blink down, they actually can't reach you. Oh, yeah, that is a really nice position. It's a cancel on the 5th base. That was about 60-70% done. Not bad at all, but also not much. Hive is finishing up. Lurker Den is finishing up. Upgrade still on the way for the Zerg player, who is at 89 drones. It finally feels like Reynor is in the position he wants to be. This is looking more like his ZvT versus Spirit than the ZvPs he has played thus far versus MaxPax. And it looks like he's going to be a real powerhouse, but MaxPax isn't too far behind him. 82 probes on 4 bases, a very solid setup for the Protoss. We got some heavier hitting units on the way as well. Storm is done, covering some of the initial potential pokes. Once lurkers are included, you're going to need something like, well, immortals or disruptors. And we are going to go up to a total of triple robo. 3 of them, count them, pumping out immortals. And that is a pretty fine setup right there. As long as the lurkers don't get into any type of position where the immortals can't reach them quickly. You know, like the main, or the Nidus Worm. No Nidus Worm, we're okay. We're okay. Nidus Worm will no doubts come through this game at some point. Minute 10, 12, 15, whatever it is. But not yet. 10 lurkers being built. Upgrades for them. We're going to get that range first, then the speed burrow. Nidus Worm still not coming, but I'm always going to be looking at that Overseer. Cannon actually will kill it, funnily enough. We got a little bit of a wall going on at 4th base as well, and Reynor knows that his presence has been revealed. Still going to go for at least some of the topical damage. You know, a couple of gateways, a couple of cannons. Nothing super important, but could be important later on. Nidus Worm! There it is. I think the Overseer did die, but you could always place one in later on. How many Immortals are we at? We're at 5, almost at 7. The Immortals on the front line, however, already having the shields popped. So already one of them gets killed. Second one is dangerously close to dying as well. Shield Bite Overcharge cannot save it. 10 lurkers. Make that now 14 lurkers. They pack quite a punch, don't they? And this army is not holding very much. MaxPax, of course, that wasn't his whole army. Was anticipating either a secondary attack or maybe was thinking a potential surround, but not going to happen. And what initially was only a couple of gateways, a couple of cannons, is now turned into the entire Nexus potentially falling here. MaxPax, no. I mean, I know the supplies aren't that different, but that is so many lurkers. I think he needs a 3rd different attack. Oh, and the Nidus Worm's in the main base as well. Wait. No. It is in the Nidus Worm. This one is here, though. But there's also one in the Nidus Worm. There's also one in the main base. That is also a problem. Recall might be in the nick of time. Lurker's going to pop out. 3, 4. 4 of them will pop out, and another Nidus Worm is on the way. MaxPax, he's holding on for dear life at this point. At an almost maxed out supply. With 3 bases still up and running, I think he could actually recover. Only because he's almost maxed out already. So he's got a little bit of that bank. He will eventually get that 4th base, and he might even double expand. You know, the 5th base could come down fairly quickly. If the Nidus Worm wasn't here, I could see him trying to sneak that in. Not so far, just focusing on one step at a time. One step at a time was dealing Nidus Worm in the main base, ensuring those lings were not going to get into the natural, no attack on the 3rd base, and then, hey, the 4th is finally open, let's retake that. And that is a proper level-headed play from one of the world's leading Protoss there, because they would have been all too easy to panic when that 4th base had been broken. He had set up an almost surround and then thought better of it, which I'm glad that he did. And now he has, I think, the appropriate number of Immortals, assuming they get a concave. That was not it, however. They once again got caught kind of going through that choke unbeknownst to them. Lurkers were already in position. An Immortal does get taken down. We're still at 9. Working on 2 more. +2 is done for the Protoss, +2 done for the Zerg as well. Greater Spire, actually, the next idea here for Reynor. There is a pretty prominent time that Protoss can take advantage of, though, when you go into a Greater Spire. That was a kill and a cancel on a hatchery right there. One lurker gets shot down as well. Okay, this army's dead. But it is dying on the Zerg side of the map, so, you know, small favors here as the rest of the army tries to take advantage of the now out-of-position lurkers. Turns out there's too many lurkers, can't find them out of position. Anyways, what was I talking about? Oh, there is a time in which you try to make your move over into a Greater Spire, in which then the Protoss can take that map control, can start to actually threaten your bases, and might even, again, get that 5th base up and running, although certainly not as of yet. If you aren't in control of the situation. If the Zerg is totally in control of the situation, MaxPax is totally on the defensive, running around, chasing down Overseers and Nidus Worms and whatnot, then Reynor can trickle lose lurkers and trickle in Raptors and Broodlords. And then what does MaxPax have against those Broodlords? Almost nothing. He does have Stargates and a Fleet Beacon, so he can get to something. But he is clearly not the best set up to do so. So, assuming the Broodlord transition comes in hard and fast, suddenly 14 Broodlords, boom, Protoss is in a lot of trouble. Should it be anything else, like, hey, 2 Broodlords reveal themselves, MaxPax is doing an okay job defending, says, oh shit, I need to worry about Broodlords. I see this game going on for a long time. And MaxPax actually having defended all attempted attacks here from Reynor, because there's a couple things that could have happened, is now on 4 bases comfortably. 5 Broodlords coming in hot right now, but 5's not that impressive. The Archons will be able to hold the line for a period of time anyway. Nothing can probably kill the Broodlords, but then it's a question of the Broodlords stop this army or not. All by their lonesome? No. With Lurkers and Hydras? Probably yes. +3 done now for both parties. +1 melee as well for the Zerg, as well as Adrenal Glands. So those Lings coming out from the Nidus Worm are going to have a kick to them. More Stargates on the way. MaxPax having done a really good job basically not panicking, not losing his army and his economy, has not really taken all that many battles. I mean, in a 14.5-minute ZvP, you could easily see these resources on both sides being 20,000, I guess. 30,000 maybe, even in a really back and forth one, I suppose. But instead, it is what it is. It's actually an even resources lost, which is going to be acceptable for the Protoss at this stage, and then an maxed out army with a potentially successful air transition. Maybe he doesn't need it. The army on the right side gets recalled out to survive another day, while the army of the Protoss on the left, Mothership included, is clobbered that would be 6th base. Reynor has plenty of bank, 9,000 minerals almost, 2,000 gas, that's okay. But he also still has bases mining. Now, in another 5 minutes, that might not be the case. In another 5 minutes, Reynor might be out of minerals to mine from, except for this base maybe. But MaxPax could find himself in a similar position if he can't keep his 4th base alive. His original 4th does get destroyed yet again despite the cannons. His 5th, though, is up and running and is mining happily for now. Tempests are on the way. No one finding a real time to just A-move and win, that's for sure. Both players still fighting tooth and nail here. Reynor is the one on his last life, however. MaxPax trying to once again just keep this as cool of a head as possible, right? Is his best reaction to everything coming his way. Because, you know, it's one thing to lose the Nexus and all the probes. Oh my god, they got massacred. God, cracklings. It's another to lose that and your army. Once again, assuming that MaxPax does not lose his army here, he might be able to double expand and recover the 2 Nexus that he just lost. His main base is still intact thanks to an eagle eye on the Nidus Worms, and his probe count could be replaced as well. I mean, I guess it's going to transfer, so it doesn't have to be replaced. But it needs a Nexus. It does need a Nexus to actually go to, and then 43 probes might be enough for the mineral count that MaxPax has. MaxPax knows he's on the ropes. MaxPax knows this has never been an ideal game for him. His time to strike, they've been limited. He has gotten a few jabs in there, but it's not quite tit for tat with the hatcheries of the Zerg being cheaper, obviously. A little more resource loss here for the Protoss, or an ideal situation, they'd be winning that one. So a lot of hesitancy from both players, though, because even though MaxPax has been on the ropes, his army's still very good. Even though Reynor has seemingly had the control over the game, like 80% of the game, has an army that if it takes a bad fight, it takes a bad fight. And then it is the one-punch Protoss army that ends up winning the game, regardless of anything that happened in the first 18 minutes. And that doesn't feel very good. So Reynor's well aware of that. Reynor's well aware that even though his Lurkers have found some damage, he's killed all of those fresh bases, he hasn't actually touched the army all that often. So he has that to combat with. He has that to worry about. Mothership was going to try and sneak on over by the looks of things. I think it was trying to kill the Nidus Worm while it was doing it, but then out popped a bunch of army. Mothership is now gone. No recall over to the left side, if that was the plan. Also, no secondary recall back home, I suppose, if that was necessary. It is a big army. Maybe you would need 2 recalls. I don't know. Next is going to be canceled. MaxPax did double expand off to the 4th, and that is something that Reynor is actually keen on. Crackling coming on through here, with now +2 melee to their name. We'll kill a Nexus very quickly. We'll kill Ling's probes very quickly as well. And yet again, Reynor collects kind of a 2-for-1 deal. Both Nexus taken down. Couple of probes, couple of Archons. MaxPax is just hoping that eventually Reynor will get too cocky, too overconfident, and will invest too much into an attack And then his time to shine will happen one day. Reynor's goal is not only keeping the Protoss army suppressed, but keeping them on their original 3 bases up to 19 minutes. I mean, there's not much mining left over here. But it's also to try and get a proper late-game Zerg army as well. You know, a little trickle of Broodlords, a little trickle of Lurkers is not enough. You're going to need that really complete army because that's what the Protoss has been building up to. So, in Reynor's eyes, that you know, what is that? Is it the Lurkers purely to combat the High Templars and then as many Broodlords as you can get? Are we going to add on Ultras to kind of swarm the Protoss army? Are we even going to try and play this perhaps with those Ultras in a more base tradey style? Something that we've seen Dark do actually on this map. Where you just, you kind of YOLO, basically. You're just like, I'm just going to kill your building for your army kills me. Or are we going to see, you know, really proper Spellcaster Corruptor usage? I don't know. But it could happen. You know, right there. Boom. There you're not dead? Yeah, you're dead. Upgrades for the air, by the way. 2-1 for the Zerg. Only +2 for the Protoss. No shield upgrades ever happened. 4th base trying to be replaced. Finally finishes up. Some army back at home looking to defend. Mothership could be a little more useful. No, actually, Overseers are there. Sorry, Mothership, you're not useful. Oh! Oh, excuse me. There's also an attack happening. Parasitic Bomb contaminating a lot of the air army. A lot of shields missing. And apparently the Corruptors did not take equivalent beating. 4 Corruptors have gone down. You know, really hoping that the Archons get those perfect shots on the Corruptors and then suddenly there's no anti-air, but not quite what happened. Some Corruptors still in the skies, regaining their health, and more to be added. 7 more, in fact. So a total of 24 Corruptors. And I'm not seeing very many Archons. That Archon being popped, there's now only Storms. Kind of sketch when you're running into Lurkers, to say the least. MaxPax needing to be on the map, though, trying to be some form of aggressive just to keep Reynor under his thumb. Not working out, of course. Reynor has expanded off to the left once again and is expanding again. So he will have healthy mining bases. MaxPax is getting his original 4th, which is surprisingly healthy because it has died so many times, but it's still not the healthiest. And a 5th seems very out of reach. He is actually using 32 probes to perfectly saturate 1 mineral line and then long distance mine from the gold. There are no more minerals to mine from in the first 3 bases. MaxPax's 1-punch army has been depleted as well. It looked a lot stronger when it had those 3 or 4 Archons on it. That's really, in my opinion, what's missing is just, I mean, more stuff, to be fair. Just more stuff in general. He could have so much army if he could fill out the rest of his supply. But then also, some Archons would make me feel better, but I'm a pleb. Can't use my Storms correctly. Ultras are going to be another addition that MaxPax has not had to consider, but obviously as Immortals. Like, the Ultras are not going to simply come in here and win the game because the Immortals will kill them pretty quickly. But I'm more worried about Ultras jumping on top of a MaxPax who is not prepared. And then as soon as the Immortals try to escape the Ultra Talons, whatever they are, Tusks, those High Templars are left out in the open. And those things are really the only thing keeping this army alive, I would say. The threat of the Storms. Nice focus fire with the Interceptors. Kills a couple of Broodlords. Not that they're really that important. The Broodlords, you know, either you go really mass, I feel like, Broodlord Corruptor, or their job as anti-High Templar are kind of covered by the Lurkers right now. They're very mobile, though. It's supposed to be, but that's what they are now. They're kind of quick. And anyways, I was thinking I could see them trying to even go for a little bit of that push and pull, a little bit more of that chase that they can give as well, like that. Whereas the Lurkers obviously need some repositioning to do it. Either way, Reynor went back into Broodlords. 7 of them aren't helping a whole lot, but it doesn't really matter. The Lurkers, again, doing the job anyway, and no Ultras will be necessary. MaxPax tried to play the one-punch man game for 13 minutes, I think. It will not work out. And it will be going to game 5, guys. GG's. Took MaxPax a little bit to acknowledge it. And now we're in game 5, tied up 2-2. In the bottom right, it is MaxPax. In the top left, we have Reynor. Reynor finally getting to show what he can look like in a full-sized Zerg versus Protoss. Not the little snippets we were getting in the first 4 games, which he was already either woefully behind or just couldn't quite, or actually was able to execute, I guess, his build and win in that game 2. Now we get a little more of a balanced situation. Reynor has shown aggression that's worked, and he's shown macro that's worked. He had a game that was a disaster, and he had a game that was an acceptable, understandable loss. Didn't have a very good early game. Feels like things have balanced out. MaxPax is playing well. Reynor is playing well. MaxPax is playing more on the straight and narrow, not really deviating too much. Reynor is, but it's worked out enough that we're at here at game 5. And now it's a question. Does the straight and narrow win out on Site Delta, a smaller, condensed map, but not as small and condensed as the original maps we were playing on, game 1 and 2? Straight and narrow, or blah, 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 blah. We're feeling Zerg. Because, of course, every player will come in with some type of plan. Whether it's a specific one or not is up to the type of player, of course, but for Reynor, he has talked about being the type of person that, feels things out and how that can be an upside and a downside for him compared to Cyril, who is nothing but a thinker, really, I guess. Like, obviously, he has good instincts, but a lot of cerebral processes going on there. Reynor, not to be rude, like, sometimes doesn't think he feels. And that's absolutely not rude. That's just a really cool attribute of a player. Like, I would prefer playing a player who is, like, I guess naturally talented and kind of feels things out compared to the cerebral player, because I don't consider myself very smart. So I guess I'm always a little biased towards players like this. And Reynor's change-ups across the board have again gotten him to game 5. Although MaxPax pretty basic ZvP is proven to be good. Might not be good enough to beat a player in a best of 5. That's all what it comes down to, isn't it? Each individual game has shown strengths and weaknesses of both players, but to actually combine everything together, total sum of all 5 games, they only get 1 winner. Doesn't matter how they got there. Well, depth pressure. Reynor was forced once again to take his 3rd, as is natural. But what else is new for Zerg players out there? First and foremost, not letting the adept pressure get to him. So last game, MaxPax actually changed the pressure from early and light, 1 adept at a time is light, even if it can still kill drones, to later and 5 at a time. And that didn't do very much. That just killed a couple of creep tumors. So considering that the 3rd game was freaking amazing for his adept oracle harassment because it started so early and got so much done across the 2 minutes that it existed. And then the next game, waiting didn't do any favors. Yeah, time to go back to the game that did win out in the early game. Early adept oracle harassment, oracle popping out now. Hoping to catch Reynor off guard, hoping to catch his queen slightly out of position. Already, with the way that the first 2 adepts have been activated, I feel like Reynor already has a understanding of how this is going to go. More units in multiple locations, and he's looking to throw a little wrench into things, not just be on the defensive. So the Oracle has to stay at home defending, meaning only the adepts have to be worried about. And while they are going to find a little nook here to kill a couple of drones, this is better than the main base also somehow getting 2 or 3 drones killed because the Oracle was able to do whatever the hell it wanted. Lings popped out to help. 3rd queen popped out to help. 2 adepts die. Total of 3 drones. 6 lings have been killed. Slight delay on the 3rd nexus, I believe. And a significant delay on the oracle harassment. Looks like the 2nd oracle did have to come in and help. So that early game play is actually, again, kind of culminated to this final game in which Reynor had disastrous openers versus the little trickle in adept oracle harassment. And now he's had a really solid opener versus it, where he got to throw his own little jab in there to kind of complicate matters for MaxPax. Now, not to say that this means that Reynor is totally on top of things, and now he understands MaxPax, and now he's totally going to win, but it's a nice little storyline of the first 5 minutes you can pay attention to in a 5-game series. Resident Glaives is the choice. So MaxPax finally really changing things up. You know, we went from... He's doing a lot of things with the individual units. He did something with the timing of the Twilight Council, but he hasn't actually gone away from Stargate into Blink. Finally, changing things up by going into Resident Glaives. And Reynor has had 4 games of conditioning to only expect a Blink follow-up. Now is the question, is he keeping in mind he has to be flexible, he has to worry about other stuff. He has to worry about some type of fast Twilight Council, which was, I mean, I guess it was faster, right? 3. And then Blink or Adepts. And well, he only just now saw that it was Adepts. They're already shading across the map, and it's not a very big one. Lings are here, but no roaches. So a wall has to be made in the natural, and the third base fending for themselves. Queens are all together, not stuck behind the natural wall. So that's good news. Ling's even getting kind of a... I mean, one of the better engagements I guess they could have taken in the scenario. Adept's going to try and find success at the third base, but having been completely blocked out from the natural, that's really the only option they have. I didn't realize drones would be able to go through that. So drones and Lings can fit through this, but the Adepts can't. This is perfect. That's why those Lings got a better engagement than I thought they would. Slightly better, not tons better. That is pretty cool. That is perfect. It is literally perfect. This is a perfect handling of surprise Adepts. Now keep in mind, Reynor has been pulling drones left, right, and center, so a lot of lost mining despite having a very good drone count. He also did lose 55 Lings, so there's been a trade of life. But in the context of the game, everything else you want to consider, who actually has the lead here? I do want to say Reynor. Reynor's 4th base is up, so even though his drones hadn't been transferred over there yet, now they are being transferred after being made, of course. The Adepts might have kept some of them alive, but... And I do want to say that is something. That is actually worth it. That's a lot to cover the Lings. That's a lot to threaten with a backstab. They were able to stay on the front lines, allowing the rest of the army to meet up with them. That's not bad. There's only 3 bases for MaxPax, though. Keep that in mind. 3 base to 4 base. Pretty typical ZvP setup. But that 4 base Zerg is now at 77 drones. You do kind of want to stop them from snowballing. And now it's time to do it. Only not even 20 armor supply difference between the two. The Protoss quality should be really highlighted here. Sentries, Immortal, Stasis Traps, Oracles with Pulsar Beam, Warp Prism in a very safe location. This is scary stuff for Reynor. He was on the cusp of making non-stop army, but he was on the cusp. He had just pumped out those last few drones. So his army might not be big enough to handle this, especially with all the accessory factors, like the Oracles, like the Warp Prism, like the Stasis Trap. Reynor is actually in a lot of trouble. He needs something to go well for him, like a surround of these Stalkers after they blink. But that's going to be difficult with the Stasis Trap. There it is, activating. Catches a couple of Lings, not the worst. Reynor's still holding on. Keeping up with his injects, keeping those Lings, Roach, Ravager pumping. But MaxPax also not going to give up this position too easily. Finally is forced out of this position. Too many Ravagers, too many Lings. And he is going to evacuate, but on the evacuation, he will lose a couple of units. Immortals have to be picked up in the Warp Prism, at the very least have that going for them. This is going to be a complete chase all the way back to MaxPax's 3rd base. Now, during that aggression, 4th base was planted, so it is almost complete, and that is super, super, super important. If he had only remembered to place the 4th base down as he retreated, it is a super, super bad scenario for the Protoss. But having now almost matched the Zerg's base count, you're feeling pretty good. Reynor now needs to worry about his lack of technology, I suppose. It's like, yeah, okay, you defended, but you didn't have this huge, overwhelming punish counter. MaxPax was able to save a lot of his Stalkers, his Immortals, his Warp Prism, which would threaten the backstab as well. He was building up to Colossus, and is getting a better Protoss army, with +2 also finishing here. Reynor is Ling, Baneling, Roach, Ravager. Classic, a little bit worse since a couple of the patches, right? He's also not quite ready to go. Baneling's still forming in here, and now he is going up against a purely defensive Protoss. So no one that is not going to be found completely surrounded. Hopefully, with instead their backs up against a shield battery. There's only one shield battery, to be fair. The second one is completing. Well, we got ourselves one hell of a concave. Reynor putting all of his eggs into this. He's got queens being pulled to the front as well. Overlord's trying to give that creep spread. He's coming in from every angle he could possibly find, and this is going to be it. MaxPax, can he hold? Two Colossus helping out a lot. Blink over the right side to avoid these Banelings. Shield battery taken down. Probes being evacuated. Colossus still under fire, in trouble. Banelings want those connections. They're not going to find it. Not on both of them. No, not going to kill the second one. Oh, and that is so important. Stalker's alive, Colossus alive, Production alive, Probes, for the most part, alive. And during all of that defense, we had Adepts, we had Zealots, we had Warp Prism harassment. Reynor, he went for it. He tried to get the best possible setup, but actually ended up chasing so long that not enough actually died. Those Banelings, they had their eyes set on those Colossus, and they would take nothing else, and they really took nothing else. They took a gateway, one Colossus, not two. So many Stalkers ended up evacuating as well. The Roach Ravager didn't have the explosiveness that was able to kill a Nexus while, you know, Reynor was MaxPax wasn't looking. Everything went well for MaxPax. The best change-up for Reynor that could be done in the future? More Banelings on the right side. The fact that the Baneling army had to chase so much really was the reason that it did not go as well as it looked like it would. If the Banelings were concluding this round on the right side, those Colossus definitely don't live. So many of the Stalkers run into Banelings face first, and then it's really, really bad. It's not over yet, though. MaxPax actually, in the blink of an eye, losing 43 probes because Ling's got into the main and the natural, and Baneling's top of the fourth base as well. Perhaps the fourth base itself could be saved. Kind of necessary because you need to replace those probes. It does look like it'll survive. Finally, everything getting cleaned up, and MaxPax trying to also give as good as he gets. Zealot's looking to kill the hatchery, not focus firing, being killed instead. And the drone damage was super, super not equivalent. 3 drones killed to 48 probes. Well, the Nexus lived. +3 is still going to finish up for the Stalkers and the Colossus, of which there are now 3 of them, not just 1 or 2. Reynor got battered and bruised on his economy as well, so 59 drones is not a lot to work with, but these Ling run-bys might just be the ticket here for this best of 5. Reynor getting the Lings in the main and natural, once again distracting MaxPax's army from the fourth base, which he so desperately needs. And the Nexus and the natural is going to go down as well. Well, you kind of need that too, don't you? 9 more probes as well, probably the ones that were just remade. Oracle's forced to come in to help out the last second. These +2 melee Lings really shining there. That without those Ling run-bys, there's no way this is Reynor favored. Absolutely zero chance. And in fact, without that second run-by, I think this is still MaxPax's game, because I think he would have been able to save his fourth base if those Lings did not distract him. We're now back to that situation where it's the one-punch army, but Reynor, you know, he's kind of only got a one-punch army, too. He does not have a huge economy to constantly replace Lings, Banelings, Roaches, and Ravagers, man. Like, it's all or nothing for both parties here in game number 5. Don't want it any other way. Let's see who ends up winning out. Zealot's actually coming in around the bend. Accidentally need to join up with the rest of the army. Guardian Shield helping out the tiniest little bit here. Once again, forced to move away from the Banelings. Try and save this Colossus. Archon taking most of the shots. Stalkers, however, also getting splashed to hell and back. Yes, the Colossus might have lived, but the rest of the army is gone. Stasis Trap helping just the tiniest little bit with a little force field action right there. 2 Colossus for the win, right? That's what's happening right here. 1 Colossus finally goes down. 94 supply to 57. Run-by happened at the same time, but actually was taken care of. And then on the other side of the map, a run-by for the Protoss was happening that just killed 18 more drones, something like that. Now it's 40 drones, 18 probes, 3 bases to 4. 58 armor supply for the Zerg to 47 of the Protoss. Protoss has that magical +3 attack, though, for some very, very good units. The last little bits of gas being used to form 2 very important Archons. In fact, Archons might be the ticket here. Might just go ahead and saturate the rest of the gases with the very limited number of probes that are available. Back on the offensive, though, MaxPax, he has been able to do a little bit of scouting. He knows that his opponent hasn't taken over the map. If there is a 5th base anywhere just freely mining, this game's already over. Needs to make sure that no 5th base ever comes up, and needs to make sure that he can, I think, continues to trade well, basically. You know, time is not really on either person's side, I feel like, but perhaps an overwhelming number of units would be how Reynor wins the game. Just literally being able to collapse in for a complete surround, right? And if MaxPax can keep that from happening by keeping the armies within 20 or 30 army supply of each other, then his army can 100% win. But he kind of needs to make sure... Oh, Jesus. I mean, every unit needs to get so much done here. And the Zealots not really finding a lot thanks to the transfuses, saving some of those frontline roaches. No Immortal to help pack that punch. That would have been really helpful for that particular battle. Again, trickling in some of these Archons to help out, but now I'd actually prefer a Storm. Yeah, it's going to be at the range of those mighty roaches. Ends up favoring Reynor, as he just was, he wasn't losing any units. He was using their naturally, I guess, high armor, right? And focus firing the Archons. The Colossus won't be able to kill the roaches, especially with Queens transfusing. And then the Zealots he can just micro away from, which is what he did. Very, very, very close. Very close indeed. But Reynor will actually make this happen. 5 games, 3-2 in Reynor's favor. GG's. Good Open Cup finals.